Paul Rabin. He didn't enter the Spider-Man comics with fan excitement, he entered with fan confusion. Readers weren't asking for a new romantic interest for Mary Jane, and they definitely weren't asking for a random man with zero history in the Spider family to suddenly become important. Paul showed up out of nowhere during one of the strangest arcs in recent Amazing Spider-Man history, and fans immediately felt like he was being forced into a space that didn't belong to him. His introduction wasn't earned, organic, or logical. He is tied to the alternate dimension storyline where he and MJ end up raising two children together. Even though the kids weren't biologically theirs, the setup created a nightmare scenario for Peter Parker fans. After decades of emotional investment in Peter and MJ's relationship, the idea of MJ forming a family with a random man in a time-dilated world felt like a slap in the face. It wasn't just that Paul existed, it was that Marvel used him to break the most iconic romance in comic history without giving readers a satisfying explanation or emotional build-up. Another huge issue with Paul is that he is quite boring. He doesn't have a striking personality, a compelling backstory, a unique skill set, or even memorable dialogue. He's not charming, he's not funny, he is not dangerous, he is just there. And yet the story kept pushing him into importance, as if readers were supposed to care simply because the writers said so. When a character with no charisma or depth suddenly becomes central to Spider-Man's emotional drama, fans feel manipulated rather than engaged. Paul became a walking symbol of everything readers didn't want for Peter Parker. He wasn't just MJ's partner, he was the reason she seemed cold, distant, and rewritten in ways that didn't feel like her. Instead of giving Peter and MJ a natural reason for their breakup, the plot shoved Paul into the middle of their dynamic, turning him into an obstacle fans resented instantly. It didn't feel like good drama, it felt like emotional sabotage. Even readers who tried to be positive about new characters agreed Paul Rabin was introduced specifically to make fans upset. Paul basically represents bad editorial decisions, weak writing, and forced direction. Instead of adding depth to the Spider-Man mythos, he took the attention away from characters fans care about while offering nothing meaningful in return. He's not a villain, yes, but he might be worse. A character that nobody asked for, inserted into the most emotional part of a beloved character's world, and written in a way that makes readers feel like they are being trolled. The Inhumans. The modern hatred for the Inhumans really started when Marvel tried to make them the next big thing around 2013-2015. Marvel suddenly launched multiple Inhumans books, crossovers and events all at once. Readers quickly figured out why. Marvel didn't own the movie rights to the X-Men, so they pushed the Inhumans as a replacement. Instead of feeling organic, the entire thing felt like a business decision dressed up as storytelling. Fans don't like being told which characters they should care about, and the forced spotlight instantly turned people against the Inhumans. Black Bolt releasing the Terrigen Mist into the atmosphere was supposed to awaken new Inhumans and expand their culture. Instead, Marvel added a twist that made everyone furious. The Mists were deadly to mutants, so while new Inhumans got shiny powers, mutants literally choked and died in the same cloud. Suddenly, the Inhumans looked like selfish aristocrats who valued their tradition more than the survival of an entire race. Even worse, they didn't remove the Mists, didn't compromise, and acted like the dead cloud was sacred. So readers weren't rooting for them, they were rooting against them. Things got even worse with Inhumans vs X-Men, a crossover that tried to frame the conflict as morally grey but ended up making the Inhumans look terrible. Mutants were entirely justified. The Terrigen Mists were killing their people, but the story kept trying to portray the Inhumans as victims too. Many fans felt like Marvel was protecting their pet project at the expense of one of its oldest and most beloved franchises. When the dust settled, the Inhumans had lost not only the fight but also the audience. X-Men fans were furious, Inhuman fans were disappointed, and everyone agreed this story shouldn't have existed. Another issue is the characters themselves. The Inhuman royal family is built around monarchy, hierarchy, and elitism, concepts that never sit well with modern audiences. Black Bolt is stoic and unapproachable, Medusa can come across as arrogant, Karnak talks like a condescending philosopher. Even Crystal, one of the nicer ones, often gets dragged into messy royal politics. Compared to the X-Men, who fight for the survival and acceptance, the Inhumans feel like rich cosmic aristocrats arguing about tradition while the world burns. It's hard for readers to bond with characters who act like they are above everyone else. This combination of forced promotion, bad story decisions, X-Men conflict, and unrelatable characters created a perfect storm. Fans didn't just dislike the Inhumans, they rejected the entire direction Marvel was trying to take. And then the final blow hit. The Inhumans TV show bombed big time. Between the online backlash, poor sales, and the failed live-action attempt, Marvel quietly removed the Inhumans from the spotlight. Riri Williams. She debuted during a period when readers were already frustrated with legacy characters being replaced. Thor was replaced, Hulk was replaced, Captain America was replaced, and then Iron Man went into a coma, and a teenage engineering prodigy suddenly became the new armored hero. Even though she didn't do anything wrong in story, fans reacted badly to Marvel's pattern. She wasn't hated because of her personality, she was hated because people felt like she was forced into the spotlight as the new Iron Man before she even had time to develop her own identity. She built her own suit at MIT and impressed Tony Stark, which is impressive, but fans argued her rise felt too fast, too convenient, and not organic enough. Marvel tried to present her as the next tech genius of the universe right away, and some readers thought it undermined Tony, Rhodey, and even characters like Amaris Cho and T'Challa. This debate snowballed into toxic arguments online, and Riri became the center of fights she never asked for. Another reason Riri struggled early on is that Marvel didn't give her the strongest writing team at first. Her solo book introduced great ideas, but didn't fully explore her personality, motivation, or flaws. Readers weren't sure how she handled grief, how she viewed responsibility, or what truly drove her beyond "I'm smart." Characters like Miles Morales and Kamala Khan succeeded because writers gave them depth from day one, and Ironheart early stories felt more like outlines than emotional arcs, which made her feel flat to some readers and made others say she didn't have hero energy yet. She was also paired with a Tony Stark AI who acted like her mentor. Instead of letting her stand on her own, Marvel attached a hologram version of Tony who constantly guided her, lectured her, or helped her figure things out. Readers hated it because it made Riri feel like a side character in her own book. Instead of becoming Ironheart through her own choices, it felt like she was walking in Tony's shadow while his ghost hovered over her shoulder. The concept could have been interesting, but it ended up making her look less independent. However, later writers gave her a stronger personality, clearer goals, and actual emotional depth, especially when she started exploring what Ironheart means separate from Iron Man. She's shown vulnerability, creativity, doubt, and confidence in ways that feel real. Even fans who once disliked her admit she's becoming a solid character with a unique lane in the Marvel Universe. Mr. Fantastic. Reed is supposed to be Marvel's greatest mind, but he often acts like that gives him permission to make decisions for everyone else. He's brilliant, but he is also emotionally clueless, socially awkward, and has the people skills of a wet sock. Reed constantly treats the world like an experiment, and the people around him like data points. He doesn't mean to be cruel, but his genius blinds him to how his actions actually affect others. Fans hate him because he's always right in the most annoying, morally grey way possible. His relationship with Sue Storm is a huge point of anger for readers. He neglects her, ignores her feelings, and disappears into his work for days without explanation. There are comics where he forgets she's in the room because he's too busy explaining quantum anomalies to himself. Worse, he's repeatedly experimented on his own family, willingly exposing them to cosmic radiation again, altering their physiology, and even letting their kids participate in experiments that no normal parents would ever allow. One joke in the Marvel fandom is that half the world-ending threats exist because Reed invented something he shouldn't have. He built devices that destroy universes, machines that open portals to nightmare dimensions, and experiments that nearly collapse reality. The Council of Reeds, a multiverse group of Reed Richards variants, prove just how dangerous he truly is. Every universe has a Reed, and almost all of them eventually become cold, godlike scientists who sacrifice morality for efficiency. Reed doesn't try to cause chaos, but he does it anyway, because he can't resist poking holes in reality just to see what happens. Him joining the Illuminati didn't help his reputation. The group made secret decisions behind the world's back, and Reed was one of the loudest voices pushing for horrible choices. He approved exiling Hulk into space, covered up catastrophic threats, and hid information from his own team. Reed always believed secrecy is justified for the greater good, but fans see it as him being arrogant and manipulative. Even when his plans work, they cost lives, destroy worlds, and traumatize his allies. And Reed acts like that's just the price of doing business. He is hated because he often feels one step away from becoming a full-blown villain. He saved the world countless times, but he's also caused disasters that no normal hero would ever recover from. Namor. He is one of the oldest characters in Marvel Comics, and he is also one of the very first jerks in comic book history. He's arrogant, dramatic, and always convinced he is the smartest guy in the room, even when he's absolutely not. From the beginning, Namor has been written as someone who cares deeply about his people, but has almost zero patience for anyone else. That attitude makes him entertaining as a character, but also incredibly easy to hate. Yes, he'll help the Avengers one day, and insult every single one of them the next. Namor's biggest flaw is simple. He starts fights. A lot of fights. He's declared war on the surface world more times than anyone can count. Sometimes he has a reason, like pollution, invasions, corporate greed. But other times, he is just mad. He's flooded cities, attacked submarines, threatened countries, and taken military actions that cause massive casualties. And even when Namor is technically right about humanity ruining the oceans, he chooses the most violent way possible to prove his point. And readers love to hate him for it. The moment that truly cemented Namor as a hated character happened during Avengers vs. X-Men. Powered by a piece of the Phoenix Force, Namor unleashed a tidal wave that completely flooded Wakanda, killing civilians and destroying a nation that had nothing to do with his personal beefs. It was one of the most brutal actions a Marvel hero has ever taken. Fans couldn't believe how casually he wiped out an entire city. Even years later, Wakandans and X-Men characters still hold grudges over what Namor did. Another reason people dislike Namor is his habit of flirting with married women. The most infamous example is his obsession with Sue Storm. Even while she was married to Reed Richards, Namor constantly made moves on her, right in front of Reed, which created tension in the Fantastic Four for decades. Sue sometimes flirted back, which made everything even messier. It wasn't villain-level behavior, but it definitely made him look sleazy, disrespectful, and incredibly full of himself, especially when he acted like Sue should obviously prefer him over her husband. So yeah, he's not just a villain, he is just Namor. He'll team up with heroes to save the world, then turn around and punch those same heroes in the face if he thinks they are disrespecting Atlantis. He's unpredictable, emotional, proud, and has absolutely no filter. That makes him fascinating, but also one of the most polarizing characters in all of Marvel. Romulus. When he first appeared, readers expected a mysterious new Wolverine villain. Instead, Marvel decided he had secretly been controlling Wolverine's life from the very beginning. Suddenly, every major moment in Logan's history, the wars he fought, the tragedies he lived through, the Weapon X program, even personal relationships, were all supposedly part of Romulus's master plan. It wasn't exciting. It felt like someone dumped a bucket of bad fanfiction onto decades of storytelling. This character embodies the worst version of the I caused everything in your life trope. It's the kind of cheap storytelling where a writer introduces a brand new character and pretends they were secretly important the whole time. Wolverine's life is defined by pain, randomness, war, bad luck, and trauma. But that's what made him compelling. Turning all of that into a conspiracy planned by one Fury, Roman werewolf guy, made Logan's entire history feel fake, neat, and overly controlled. Romulus removed depth. Villains like Magneto, Sabretooth, and Omega Red work because they have motives, worldviews, and emotional connections to Logan. Romulus doesn't. His character is basically I'm ancient, I'm evil, and I mess with Wolverine because reasons. He has no charisma, no believable philosophy, no hunching backstory, just vague monologues about evolution and dominance. He's a plot device wrapped in fur, created solely to justify retcons that nobody wanted. Without any real personality, there's nothing memorable about him except how much damage he caused to the lore. Logan is the product of war, heartbreak, betrayal, trauma, and survival, not destiny. Romulus completely trampled that theme by making it seem like Wolverine wasn't self-made at all. Logan became a puppet for some shadowy Sabretooth mastermind. This retcon weakened him by stripping away his agency and making him feel like a chess piece rather than a man. So Romulus made such a mess that even Marvel quietly backed away from him. Fans rejected the idea, storylines using him underperformed, and later writers basically pretended he never existed. Professor Charles Xavier. He is usually presented as the calm, wise, peaceful leader of the X-Men, basically the Martin Luther King Jr. of mutants. But that polished image hides a much messier character underneath. From the start, Xavier was written as someone who believed he alone knew what was best for mutant kind, and that belief shaped every decision he made. Even in the early comics, he was already sketchy. He secretly fell in love with Jean Grey when she was still a teenager, something later writers quietly buried because of how uncomfortable it was. One of his biggest problems is that he lies constantly, especially to the people he claims to protect. He's erased memories, hidden entire parts of mutant history, and manipulated the minds of his own students for quote-unquote their own good. He locked away the existence of the Danger Room's sentient AI, he wiped Magneto's mind, he tampered with Rogue's emotions, and he used psychic manipulation so casually that it became part of his daily toolset. He talks a lot about trust and unity, but he rarely trusts anyone enough to be honest with them. It's one of the reasons so many of his students eventually grew to resent him. He founded the X-Men as a school, but let's be honest, it was the least safe school on Earth. Teenagers with barely controlled powers were thrown into battles against robots, alien invaders, and world-ending threats while still doing algebra homework. and Xavier didn't just allow this, he planned it. He treated mutant children like soldiers in training, often pushing them far beyond their emotional or physical limits. Cyclops especially was raised under intense pressure, shaped into a perfect field commander, and thought to suppress his own emotions. Xavier believed the ends justified the means, even when those means involved endangering minors. His darker side exploded in the 1990s when it was revealed that part of his suppressed anger and trauma created Onslaught, one of the most destructive villains in X-Men history. His telepathic control issues also led to multiple disasters, including the time he wiped Magneto's mind so violently that it triggered the creation of another monster. The X-Men have repeatedly discovered secrets Xavier hid from them, from entire mutant teams he formed and allowed to die in silence, to shady alliances with governments and powerful psychic entities. For someone who preaches peace, he's left a long trail of moral landmines behind him. Modern stories, especially the Krakoa era, have finally embraced the idea that Xavier isn't a saint. He helped create a mutant nation built on secrecy, selective memory, and psychic censorship. Even his body language changed. The man who once showed compassion now walks around emotionless, hiding behind a helmet and a mission no one fully understands. Fans now view him as one of the most morally ambiguous leaders in Marvel, someone who wants the best for mutants, but is always willing to cross lines that should never be crossed. He was never truly the perfect hero. He was always a complicated man whose power let him get away with things no one else could. Quicksilver. From the moment he joined the Marvel Universe, Pietro Maximoff brought an attitude that rubbed readers and characters the wrong way. He constantly talks down to people, insults teammates, and acts like everyone else is wasting his time. His arrogance isn't subtle either. He believes he's above most people, and he lets that superiority complex leak into every single interaction. And when he's doing the right thing, he does it with the energy of someone who would complain the whole time. Other than that, he often acts more like a controlling guardian than a supportive brother to his sister, Scarlet Witch. Over the years, he has lied to her, influenced her decisions, and pushed her into situations that benefited him, not her. In several major stories, notably House of M, Pietro played a direct role in Wanda's mental collapse. He pressured her into rewriting reality, and millions of mutants paid the price. Fans haven't forgotten that he helped trigger one of the worst disasters in Marvel history. He's been an X-Man, an Avenger, a Brotherhood member, and a loner, switching between teams so often that no one trusts him anymore. Sometimes he betrays teams out of fear, sometimes out of loyalty to Wanda, and sometimes just because he thinks people aren't moving fast enough. His moral compass spins like a broken fan, and while that makes him interesting as a character, it also makes him incredibly frustrating. He has a long history of creating messes and then acting like everyone else is overreacting, whether it's starting House of M, sabotaging teams, lying to allies, or provoking people with his attitude. Quicksilver often sparks conflict and then refuses to take responsibility. The funny part is that Quicksilver can be heroic most of the time. He saved lives, risked himself for mutants, and genuinely loves his family. But his personality is a problem. He's arrogant, impatient, controlling, and manipulative, constantly pushes fans away. Unlike other complex heroes who show growth, Pietro rarely learns from his mistakes. He's stuck in a loop of bad decisions and bad attitudes, which makes him fascinating but also widely unlikable. Hank Pym. He is one of the smartest characters in Marvel, but he's also one of the most unstable. He started as Ant-Man, then became Giant Man, then Goliath, then Yellow Jacket, then back again, constantly switching identities because he never felt comfortable in his own skin. Hank was written as a man who could build incredible machines but couldn't maintain emotional stability in his personal life. His scientific brilliance always came packaged with insecurity, anxiety, and a fragile sense of self-worth, which made him a fascinating but unpredictable Avenger from day one. His most infamous transformation happened when he created the Yellow Jacket persona during a psychological breakdown. This wasn't a cool new superhero upgrade, it was a full dissociative episode. As Yellow Jacket, he became cocky, aggressive, and desperate to prove himself as a real man, a total 180 from his usual personality. Marvel intended it to be a temporary mental health crisis, but what came next became one of the darkest panels in Avengers history. Yellow Jacket struck his wife, Janet Van Dyne, aka the Wasp. Writers later admitted the scene was poorly handled, but by then the damage was done. His reputation changed forever. The scene was one of the most defining and controversial moments in Marvel history. It wasn't just that he hit Janet, it was that the story framed it as part of his mental spiral, unintentionally mixing mental illness with violence. Fans never forgot it, and later writers doubled down on the controversy instead of fixing it. Hank Pym went from founding Avenger to the guy known for that one awful moment, no matter how many heroic things he'd done. Unfortunately, the Ultimate Comics version of Hank made the situation much worse. Instead of treating the original storyline as a mistake, the Ultimate Universe exaggerated everything. This Hank Pym was openly abusive, cruel, and downright sadistic toward Janet. This version cemented the idea that Hank Pym was defined by violence and toxic toxicity, even though that was never the entire story in the main 616 universe. Many fans felt the ultimate portrayal crossed the line, turning a flawed character into a caricature of an abuser simply for shock value. Marvel has spent years trying to rebuild Hank Pym's image, giving him arcs about remorse, therapy, heroism, and redemption. He's had great moments like mentoring Scott Lang, dedicating himself to scientific, humanitarian work, and trying to become a better person after every mistake. But his legacy is still complicated. He created Ultron, one of Marvel's worst villains. He had a breakdown that hurt the person he loved, and his storylines often used mental health as a dramatic plot device rather than something to be treated with care.